Hillary has received a lot of criticism for her close relationship with Wall Street, because she's made literally millions of dollars speaking to them, and generally her economic policy does not seem to be as hard on Wall Street and the economic elites of America as her rhetoric can at times be. Now, she might be hearing that criticism. She was speaking at a campaign event recently. Jordan Sheridan, our campaign reporter for TYT, was at that event, and he recorded some of her statements about what she would do to rein in some of the excesses of Wall Street. We've got a couple of videos for you. Here's the first.
Just think about the last two Democratic presidents. I happen to know both of them. And they each inherited economic problems from their Republican predecessors. In my husband's case, it was a recession, quadrupling of the national debt, an increase in the deficit. And when he got to Washington, he was asked, so what is it you uniquely bring that can fix these problems? He thought for a minute. He said, well, I guess arithmetic. We're going to make it add up for the American people. And at the end of 8 years, it did. 23 million new jobs. Incomes went up for everybody, not just people at the top. Middle-class families, working families, poor families. That's what we're supposed to be doing in America. More people lifted out of poverty than at any other time in recent history. We were on the right track, my friends. Well, what happened? We had another Republican coming back in, George W. Bush, and I was there. I was in the Senate, and I spoke against it, voted against it, but back into trickle-down economics we fell. And it wasn't just cutting taxes on the wealthy, because my husband had raised them. It was also cutting out regulating the financial services and the mortgage markets. In fact, if you go back, you can probably find a picture of the person that President Bush put in charge of regulating Wall Street, because they made him the head of the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. And the first thing he did, just about, was to pose for a picture with a stack of regulations and a chainsaw, a big smile on his face, just basically sending as clear a message as he could. We're not watching. You do whatever you want. That's our policy. And boy, did we pay for that.
So I just want to be clear about this. She's right on a lot of what she's saying. Like there were 23 million jobs created under Bill Clinton, and the economy did great. He left with a surplus. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. People forget that. It was estimated to be a $5 trillion surplus that he handed off to Bush, which Bush then turned into a $1.2 trillion deficit per year, okay, when he left office. And the economy was obviously a mess under Bush, et cetera. The part that's frustrating is at the end of Clinton's administration, right before he left, he deregulated the banks. He did, including Glass-Steagull, where the banks were allowed to basically gamble with depositor money, which turned out to be disastrous. So when you let them gamble with our money, it turns out they lost it, right? And then we had to give it back to them. And so interestingly, Bill Clinton later apologized for at least that piece of legislation, not all the deregulation, where he took the chainsaw to the regulation of the banks. And he said, yeah, we probably messed up with repealing Glass-Steagull. But in this campaign, Hillary Clinton is not in favor of bringing Glass-Steagull back. She doesn't think it was a mistake, apparently. Yeah. Now, she might be influenced by the millions of dollars banks have given her personally and her campaign. So she says she's not. No. They were paying for her pearls of wisdom. She's not at all influenced by that, but she'd still like for you to, for the banks to have the ability to gamble with your money. So it's a great story she just told. The problem is the ending. The ending where she turns into the guys she's complaining against.
Who's going to tell them to cut it out.
Right.
So we've got one more video that I want to get to before we do any more commentary, because she's going to imply here that she is actually the person who's going to be tough on Wall Street.
And then people say to me, well, so what are you going to do about Wall Street? Well, for heaven's sakes, I have been on record for years. I've been on record to close the loopholes they take advantage of. I've been on record to go after their CEO pay. And I am very proud that we passed legislation under President Obama, the Dodd-Frank rules, that give us the power to go after the big banks. We already have that law. This is not something we have to do. We passed it. We got to make sure we enforce it. And I've said no bank is too big to fail and no executive too powerful to jail. If they pose a systemic risk to our economy.
Yeah, but the problem, of course, is they do right now. She keeps saying that we're not going to allow them to be too big and to pose a threat. They posed a threat yesterday. They posed a threat. They pose a threat today, and they will pose a threat the day that she or Bernie Sanders or, God forbid, someone else gets sworn into the White House, and she refuses to accept that. Bernie Sanders says, I'm going to break them up because we can't afford to let them stay at the size that they are. She implies she'll do the same thing, but obviously is blind to when that would need to happen. And I would love for someone to just ask her, like, no one, look, if somebody offers you $250,000 to speak for 42 minutes, you will take that money. But I would say to her, considering that you're telling us you're going to be hard on them and you're going to potentially break them up and you're going to cut their pay, don't you think it's kind of silly of them to pay you so much money? But no, she understands exactly why she's been paid something like $11 million specifically by Wall Street companies to give those speeches. It's because they know that either she will be indebted to them or that she is already on their side.
I think there's no bigger issue that reveals Hillary Clinton to be part of the problem and not part of the solution, and part of what's wrong with our body politic, what's wrong with the Democrats since Bill Clinton. And when she stands there and tries to pretend that she's a champion and she's going to stand up against Wall Street and she's always been on the side of the working people, it's not true, right? So we talked about it before. So Bill Clinton was the one who wanted to, he set in motion deregulate the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, which Bernie Sanders got tricked into voting for, right? We know that. But one of the people that was one of the designers of that act, right, which let them do the collateralized debt and in opaque markets, she now has as the member of her economic team, right? Whereas Bernie Sanders put a hold on that guy when they wanted to appoint him to a federal position. So Bernie Sanders puts a hold on that guy's appointment. Hillary Clinton invites him to be part of her economic team. And so it's completely disingenuous what she's saying. She's completely in bed with Wall Street, just like her husband was. She's not going to do anything to regulate them. In fact, she even voted to let banks raise credit card rates to 35% on people. She's done a lot of bad. She's got no good record with Wall Street whatsoever. And this what it's like, you know what? You have a case to make for your own presidency. This isn't it. And the fact that Democrats are lying to Democratic voters like this during the primary, okay, you go into a general, you do whatever you have to win to beat the enemy or whatever because they're evil and what they'll do is much worse than what you would do. But in the Democratic primary, to be lied to during it turns my stomach. It's why we didn't vote for her the first time she ran against Barack Obama. It's why people don't want to vote for her again. She's a flawed candidate. She's what's wrong. She's the symbol of what's wrong with politics. And they want us as Democrats, as progressives, to somehow embrace her because she's going to beat Donald Trump.
Okay. So first of all, Bernie Sanders is doing better in swing states against Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton is. So if you want someone to beat Donald Trump, apparently the answer is Bernie Sanders. Now, on to this. She said we've done enough. She said we already did the law. We already did Dodd-Frank. Dodd-Frank is a Band-Aid when we have cancer. So these guys at the banks, they got regulations around the edges. Oh, the housing market is what you gambled on last time. I'm going to do some regulations around the housing market. But all the systemic problems, your size, your monopoly power, the fact that you pay the ratings agencies, they give you good ratings back. Well, that system is bound to fail because, of course, they're going to give you good ratings. And, of course, investors and consumers are going to be tricked into thinking that the products that you have are creditworthy when they're not. I give you one of dozens of examples.
Only one candidate is talking about reforming the credit agencies and taking the connection between them and the banks away, and that's Bernie Sanders. And yes, it would cost the credit agencies the ability to go out on their own and make money, and who cares?
I don't care about that at all. That's fine.
When they were passing Dodd-Frank, I did about a year and a half's worth of shows on the specifics of the regulation until I bored the crap out of you guys. Okay, I've covered every part and parcel of that regulation. It is enormously weak. If Hillary Clinton, even if she's earnest, let's say Jimmy's wrong, she's not lying. She earnestly believes that we've done enough and the banks won't give us any more problems because we got them.
Yeah.
That might be an even bigger problem because none of the underlying problems have been fixed They still have a system built on all the wrong incentives. They're incentivized towards greed. They're incentivized towards unlimited gambling.
Yeah.
And if you allow human beings to engage in unlimited gambling where they keep all the upside and have none of the downside, they're going to do the unlimited gambling and they will crash the economic system again.
Yeah.
So if she's saying, elect me and I won't do anything about the banks, oh boy, that is the best argument against her.
And I, for whatever reason, this is not my area of expertise at all, but I read a lot about Dodd-Frank, and I read from some fairly progressive people, different that it was stronger than you would maintain. But even those people weren't suggesting that therefore we're done. Even those who maintain, and Lord knows the banking industry thinks it's a giant pain in the ass because they don't like, if they have to fill out a form, it's a giant burden. Apparently, I could have made $100,000 the time it took me to fill out this form. But the glass-steagull thing is just irresponsible. I mean, it doesn't. Just because it's like, thank God, because that specifically didn't cause the crash. Like, therefore, that isn't something we have to worry about. The fact that playing with our money. It might, and of course, what would happen again is if they lost all, we'd bail them out. There's no question we'd bail them out again.
And so let me just really quickly, so we were talking about the Commodities Futures and Modernization Act, right? So that was part of repealing Glass-Steagall. That was the two things that really screwed the economy, right? And let Wall Street run wild. So there was a guy who was the undersecretary. He's from Goldman Sachs. And that guy's name was Gary Gensler. He was one of the major authors of that bill, right? So when he came up, they wanted to appoint him to be the head of that Futures and Modernization Committee. Bernie Sanders puts a hold on him, right? Says, no, and why? Because he wrote this thing. Hillary Clinton, 8 years later, so Hillary Clinton now has that guy on her economic team, Gary Gensler. So
He's really sorry,
so
though.
Remember
Well, he kind of actually is.
Barack Obama kept saying, you can't have the same people drive you out of the ditch who drove you in. Barack Obama immediately hired those same people, and Hillary Clinton is also hiring those same people. So if we take them at their word when they campaign that you can't have the same people drive you out of the ditch that drove you in, then we shouldn't be voting for these people.
Yeah, and so let me, to be fair to Gary Gensler, he really did have what appears to be an awakening, and he was much better on those issues later in his career. Okay, but having said that, your overall point is still great because the Clinton team are the people who hire people like, Larry Summers and Tim Geithner. I mean, now specifically, Geithner was also in the Clinton administration as well as the Obama administration.
Robert Rubin.
Robert Rubin, right. All those guys, all these former Goldman Sachs guys, right? Whereas Bernie Sanders says, if I'm elected, actually, this is to me the most exciting part of Bernie Sanders' candidacy. You never think about his cabinet, but he's already told you who'd go into his cabinet. On the economic team, it'd be people like Joseph Stiglitz, 2 Nobel Prize for Stiglitz. And people say that like, oh, yeah, an academic. No, that means he knows what he's doing really, really well, right? And Robert Reich and all these guys who are true progressives and incredibly knowledgeable, right? They're not like, hey, I'm a liberal, I don't know, let's go get the banks. They're like, no, the reason we would break up the banks is because it would actually make the financial system more sound. And I have a couple of Nobels that prove that, right? So
to be fair, Obama has one of those too.
That was for peace, not
Prize.
for
I know.
economics. And so if Sanders brought in that team, boy, you would have a sea change, and a sea change towards more stability in the financial markets, not less stability.